Jurassic World Dominion is coming out June 10th, so now's as good a time as ever to rewatch all the Jurassic Park movies to prepare for its release. These are going to be quick recaps of each movie, pointing out highlights and the general story. I'll try to keep these short so this video isn't 6 hours long, because I love this series and I could talk about it all day. No better place to start than the beginning, so let's dive right into 1993's Jurassic Park. Billionaire John Hammond figures out a way to take dinosaur DNA from mosquitoes stuck in amber and makes an entire island full of dinosaurs. Why? Because when he was a boy, he saw a flea circus, and he thought, you know what? I could do that with real living dinosaurs. Man, billionaires have too much time on their hands. After a pretty nasty attack that results in a guy getting killed, Hammond has to call in experts to make sure everything is safe before he can open the giant gates to the public. So he calls in Donald Gennaro, a lawyer, Ian Malcolm, a chaos theorist, paleontologists Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ellie Sattler, and also, because it's safe, his own grandchildren. This isn't going to end well, is it? At first, when everyone arrives, the park is jaw-dropping. These people were left in the dark as to what exactly they were doing there. So when someone who studies dinosaurs actually sees a living dinosaur, I think that would be a pretty life-changing moment. They all get a tour of the facility and see how the dinosaurs are made. We learn that they're all female, so at least on paper, they shouldn't be able to reproduce. But, as we all know,
life finds a way.
After their tour of the lab, they get to go see all the dinosaurs. But behind the scenes, there's treachery afoot. Dennis Nedry, the lead programmer for the entire park, steals some dino DNA to sell to a client. I mean, who wouldn't want to get their hands on that? He takes the entire system down, electric fences and all, and stores the DNA in what is probably the coolest shaving cream bottle ever. When the cars stop, the people in the tour assume that they're still just working out the bugs and sit tight. But we know better. Nedry abandoned them on an island full of dinosaurs, right in front of the T-Rex cage, might I add. Anyway, he gets his comeuppance because he gets lost, wrecks his car, and is killed in a pretty horrific way. Eventually, the T-Rex figures out that the fence is off, and she makes her attack. First with the lawyer, who just had to go to the bathroom.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Then moves on to the kids. Grant and Malcolm distract her, and she knocks out Malcolm. But Grant is able to get to the kids and get them out of the car. The only way they can escape from the monster is to rappel over the edge, but Tim is still in the vehicle, and it goes flying over the edge. Once Grant and Lex make it down, he checks on Tim, and he's fine, just a bit scared. Understandably so. They all make it down and are safe for the night. So, now the group is split up. Grant and the kids are out in the jungle, and the rest are back at the lab. The staff are able to find Malcolm and get him patched up, and Ellie never went on the tour, opting to stay behind and learn more about some sick triceratops. The first thing they need to do is get the park back online, then find Grant and the kids, who have just discovered eggs, so they know these things can reproduce. They figured out that's because they spliced in some frog DNA to fill in the gaps. Some West African frogs can change their sex in a single-sex environment. Well, that sucks for them. After running from one of the most dangerous dinos of them all, the Velociraptor,
Clever girl.
Ellie is able to get to the power station and get the power restored, but the systems are still offline. The electric coming back on is good news for everyone, but Tim, who's climbing over one of the fences. It's okay, he's fine. Kids are tough, they can handle it. Eventually, they make it to the visitor center, and now the kids are safe. So, Grant leaves them to bring Ellie back from the power station. But the kids aren't safe. The Velociraptors get inside, and the kids have to hide in the kitchen. We see that the raptors are getting smarter as they figured out how to open doors. Eventually, the kids escape and make it back to the control room, where Grant and Ellie are waiting for them. But they need to get the system back online. Good thing Lex is some super genius computer programmer. She gets in and is able to lock all the doors, and they can now call out for help. On their way to the helicopter pad, they're stopped by the hungry Velociraptors. There's no escape, and it looks like they're dead meat, until the hero of the whole movie shows up to save them, T-Rex herself. They fight as the humans make their escape, and Hammond realizes maybe he should have just made a flea circus.
After careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park. So have I.
In Lost World, Jurassic Park, we learn of a second island that Hammond used to breed the dinosaurs, then move them to the main park. When everything went sideways in the first movie, they just released the creatures from their cages, and somehow they've been able to not only survive, but thrive. Hammond gathers up a team to try to figure out how the dinos are doing so well, despite being bred with deficiencies that the humans gave them. This team consists of Sarah Harding, Eddie Carr, Nick Van Owen, and somehow he convinced Ian Malcolm to go back to the island. Well, convinced isn't really the word, it's more like forced. You see, Ian is dating Sarah and she's already there, so he has no choice but to go and rescue her. Before he goes, though, we meet his daughter Kelly, who isn't happy about having to spend time with her babysitter. Spoiler alert, she sneaks onto the trailer and ends up on the island. The guys land, see the dinosaurs, this time a Stegosaurus, and as you would expect, their jaws drop. Except for Malcolm, who's seen this all before. They find Sarah, and she's already figured out everything Hammond wanted to know. They explain that the dinosaurs are doing so well because of some nutrients in the plants they are eating, but it's all just mumbo-jumbo just to explain something that was established in the first movie. You see, they were so careful before, making them all female and giving them this deficiency so they would only live a few days without human intervention. However, once again,
Life, finds a way.
they see a fire back at base camp, and surprise, it's Kelly.
I just wanted to make dinner.
Dad is understandably pretty upset and tries to call someone to get her out of there, but of course he can't get through. Just then, a ton of helicopters come flying through, and we learn about a second team that has been dispatched to the island. This time by Hammond's nephew, Peter, who has taken over his company InGen. They're there to capture these creatures and bring them back to San Diego to open a zoo. So instead of building an entire park on an isolated island, now you want to bring them into the city. This isn't going to end well. Malcolm's team sees what's going on and they do not like that one bit. So they sneak down and release all the captured critters, who destroy everything. The last one they free is an injured baby T-Rex. and seeing how its leg was broken by humans, they feel obligated to help it out. So they bring it back to the trailer and fix it up, which naturally attracts the attention of Mom and Dad. They give the baby back and they think they got away with it, but nope. T-Rex doesn't forget, and it attacks the trailer. The back half goes over the edge. Sarah falls onto the glass and it's starting to crack. The satellite phone falls and shatters it, but she hangs on. Meanwhile, Eddie shows up to help out. The trailer is slowly sliding over the edge, and he hooks on a winch to help keep it from falling over. And how is Eddie rewarded for all his hard work? Well, he's eaten. Poor Eddie. Without his help, the trailer easily falls over the edge, but the 3 survivors pass right through it. And they climb up to be greeted by the other team. We see that their equipment is destroyed, and obviously all of Malcolm's stuff is gone too. So they have no choice but to team up and walk to an operations center about a day's hike away, which just so happens to be surrounded by a raptor's nest. Some people are attacked, but everyone important makes it. Nick is able to get the power back on and make a distress call. The others have a few close encounters with some raptors, but in the end are picked up by a helicopter and flown out of there. And as they go, they see the other team and what they were able to capture. That's right, they managed to bring in one of the T-Rexes and its baby. And yep, they bring it back to San Diego. But of course, it doesn't go as planned. The ship crashes onto the dock and we find out that all of the crew have been eaten by the T-Rex, and it escapes into the city. Chaos ensues as it attacks people, buses, and even this poor innocent traffic light. Sarah and Ian come up with a plan to use the baby to bring Dad back in. And it works without a hitch. Well, Peter is eaten alive, but he had that coming. They close the gate and the 2 dinosaurs are shipped back to the island, which is now officially made into the world's deadliest nature preserve. Jurassic Park 3 opens up with some guys, who we later find out are Eric and his soon-to-be stepdad Ben, doing some illegal parasailing over Isla Sorna, which is the same island from Lost World. The boat they're attached to is attacked and wrecks onto the rocks. Ben is able to get them free, but now they're stuck on an island full of dinosaurs. Next, we see Alan Grant and Ellie. It's nice to see them back together, even if they aren't really together. They went their separate ways, and she had kids, and he continues his research, but they're still friends. Even though Grant has seen the real deal, he still prefers to work on fossils. But funding is tight, and Billy, Alan Grant's right-hand man, informs him that they only have a few months left before they're out of money. Probably because they spent it all on a fancy 3D printer to make a raptor voice box, which they probably could have just flown to the island, killed a raptor and taken it, but I guess it's more humane. Plus, nothing would get Grant to go back to the park. That is, nothing but money. Paul and Amanda Kirby take them out to dinner and offer to fund their entire project if he'll just come along to be their guide. They promise him they won't land the plane and only do a flyover just to see the dinosaurs. But once they get to the island, we can see this isn't the case. Grant tries to show them some dinosaurs and tell them some interesting facts, but they don't really seem to care. If it isn't already obvious, they're looking for Eric, their son. Amanda, Eric, and Ben were on vacation. All the stuff we saw in the beginning happened, and Amanda went home to her ex-husband, who hires all these people to find him. He says he's some multi-millionaire that has all these connections, but in reality, he's a hardware store owner who spent every dime he had on this trip to find his son. So anyway, with all that out of the way, we see Grant is understandably pretty upset. They don't understand the danger they're in, but they find out pretty quickly. Some of the gunmen are getting chased out of the jungle, and they tell them they need to go. They board the plane and leave one guy behind, and out of the trees comes a new dinosaur, a Spinosaurus, which is bigger and badder than anything we've seen before. It attacks the plane and it crashes. Everyone goes running, and it looks like they're dead meat. But then a T-Rex comes and fights the Spinosaurus, which gives them a little time to escape. Unfortunately for the T-Rex, the king of all dinosaurs, the Spinosaurus is bigger, and it takes him out. While wandering around, they find the parachute and Ben. Thankfully, no sign of Eric. They also stumble upon a raptor's nest. Luckily, no one's home, but Billy hangs back for just a little bit, saying he was taking pictures. They find a facility, the raptors attack, and everyone goes running. The Kirbys and Billy hide up in a tree, but Grant doesn't make it. He takes off on his own and gets surrounded. Then, out of nowhere, some gas bombs are thrown, and Grant is rescued by none other than Eric, who's been living out here for 8 weeks. Eventually, he's reunited with his parents, and for about 5 seconds, everyone is happy. But then, the Spinosaurus attacks again. They get away and hide in another building, where we learn why these animals have been so aggressive. Billy wasn't just taking pictures of the raptor eggs. He took some of them. And now, they know the humans have them, so the raptors will hunt them down until they get them back. The group heads down to the coast and ends up in a big cage. It doesn't take them long to figure out it's a bird cage, and Eric is attacked by a pterodon. He's flown over to a nest of babies, and Billy, using the parachute they found earlier, flies over and saves him, while the others fight Mom and Dad. They all end up in the water and get out safely, except Billy, who's washed away and presumed dead. They make it to the boat and start heading downriver to the ocean. Later that night, they hear the satellite phone ringing, which one of the hired gunmen had before he was eaten. Then it was in the belly of the Spinosaurus, and now it's in its poop. They get it out, answer it, but it's just a telemarketer.
Hello?
Not long after that, they're attacked one last time by our old friend, and during the attack, Alan gets a hold of Ellie, who can't really understand him, but knows something is up. They end up shooting the dinosaur with a flare gun, which lights the river on fire from all the gas on the boat, and it wanders away. Everyone gets back together and starts hoofing it on foot. They hear the ocean in the distance, but one last thing to take care of: the raptor eggs. They hand them over, and Grant uses the voice box to confuse them, which works long enough for them to hear the helicopters in the distance. The raptors take the eggs and run, while the humans get to the beach to see Ellie called in the cavalry. They board the helicopter, and we see Billy, who's hurt but alive. As they head home, everyone's all smiles, and the Kirbys act like they aren't going to go to prison for all the laws they just broke. On to 2015's Jurassic World, where we see that the islands are no longer a nature preserve, but a full-on theme park with thousands of people in attendance. Did they learn nothing from the past 3 movies? We meet Gray and Zach, who get the vacation of a lifetime. Their parents send them to spend some quality time with their Aunt Claire, who just so happens to be a high-up at the park. When they get there, however, she's much too busy to entertain them. She's getting the park's latest attraction ready for the public, the Indominus Rex, a sort of hybrid dinosaur that is made to be bigger, scarier, and deadlier, which is what they say people want to see. Owner of the park is Simon Mesrani, who, like Hammond, cares more about the park being fun and that the people are happy over profits. He's CEO of Mazzarini Global Corporation, and Hammond entrusted him with building this new park. So he isn't part of the InGen Corporation, which leads us to Hoskins, who is working for InGen as head of security, and he sees the value in having these creatures fight as soldiers, specifically the raptors. Owen Grady, who's been working with the velociraptors since they were born, has earned their respect, and is even able to control them, if even just a little bit. We can tell that this park has been open for several years, and there's a lot of different ways you can experience the dinosaurs, be it a petting zoo for small children, kayaking down the river, or even being in a hamster ball, which they call a gyrosphere. Gray and Zach hop into one of these and take a self-guided tour. Elsewhere, Owen inspects the Indominus Rex's enclosure. Everything looks good except for one thing. She's missing! The thermals don't detect her in the cage anymore, and they see scratches over the wall. So they assume she escaped. The guys head in, for some reason, and Claire calls the control room so they can track the implant inside it. And it turns out that it's still in the cage. It was just able to hide itself. Now the guys are screwed. They escape, and so does the Indominus. Owen is able to hide and cover up his scent by dousing himself with gasoline, which, might I add, he never washes off the entire movie, so he smells like gas the whole time. Anyway, it works, and the Indominus Rex is now loose in the park. They close all the rides and tell the guests to go back to the main entrance, basically getting ready to evacuate. Only problem is, Gray and Zach are in the gyrosphere, and they decided to do a little off-roading. They come face to face with Indominus Rex, who is able to break the ball pretty quickly, but they escape and jump off a cliff into the water below, where she loses interest and wanders away. Mesrani takes a helicopter to the sky to shoot down the creature, but he's not a good pilot. Indominus breaks into the aviary and releases petrosaurs into the air, which crash the helicopter. They move on to the rest of the park, picking off guests one by one, including the boys' babysitter, who is picked up and dropped into the water where a giant mosasaurus eats her up. Eventually, the kids are reunited with their aunt, and it looks like they can get out of there. But they hear Hoskins has taken over, and he plans on using the raptors to hunt down the Indominus Rex. No one can control them but Owen, so he has no other choice but to help. At first, it looks like their plan might work. The raptors track it down, and everyone takes aim. But then, they learn the Indominus is part raptor, and now the pack has a new alpha. They shoot at it, even getting out the big guns, but it's no use, and the hybrid dinosaur gets away. And what might be worse is the raptors are now free as well. They go back to the lab and see that it's been cleared out. Hoskins is there, and he thinks he's going to change the world and win wars with these creatures. But then one breaks in and eats him. So there goes that. Our heroes run outside where they're surrounded by the raptors. Owen gains their trust back, this time for good, and just in time too, as Indominus Rex comes looking for a fight. The raptors attack, but it's no contest. The humans run and hide, and they figure out that they need more teeth. So Claire goes and releases the big guns, Tyrannosaurus Rex. He teams up with the only remaining raptor, and they fight the colossal dinosaur. They push it to the water's edge, and out of nowhere, the Mosasaurus attacks and pulls the Indominus Rex under. They get off the island and the kids are reunited with their parents. And I assume Owen goes home to take a shower and wash all that gasoline off that's still all over him. And that brings us to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Here we see a team of guys getting a bone sample of the now long dead Indominus Rex. But they're not alone down there. Dinosaurs attack and get a few people, but the team got their prize. And in that bone is DNA that they can use. They also forgot to close the gate behind them, so they let the Mosasaurus out. So, good job, guys. Next, we learn the island's volcano is now active, and it's only a matter of time before the island and all of its inhabitants are gone. People are split on whether to save the dinosaurs or just let God take them out. Dr. Ian Malcolm makes a cameo to basically say that after his experiences, we all need to just let them die out. But of course, that's not what's going to happen. We see Claire is now the head of some dinosaur rights group fighting to save them, but they just can't get the funding. That is, until they get a call from Mr. Lockwood, some very wealthy guy that worked with Hammond in the early years of distracting the DNA from Amber. In fact, the first dinosaurs were grown in his lab, which is in the basement of his giant house. In charge of his estate, Lockwood has entrusted Eli Mills, who assures Claire that they want to save the dinosaur species and put them on a different island. They have a particular interest in the last surviving raptor, Blue. In order to track her down, she knows she's going to need Owen's help, so she gets him to tag along back to the island. The last that we saw of these two, it seemed like they were going to start dating, but that fell through and they went their separate ways. So anyway, they get to the island and they see that there's already a crew there, led by Wheatley, and they've gotten a lot of different species. The last one they need is the raptor. They track her down using the chip implanted at birth, and Owen just about has her trust. When they shoot tranquilizers in her, she still attacks and one guy fires a bullet in her, which drastically lowers her chance of survival. Dr. Zia Rodriguez, one of Claire's friends, is there to save her. They shoot Owen with a tranquilizer and leave him, Claire, and Franklin, the computer programmer, on the island to die. They run with the dinosaurs to escape the violent volcano, and after a bit of a struggle, make it to the boat and watch Isla Nublar go up in smoke. Back to the Lockwood estate, and we learn Eli's true intentions. He was never going to save the dinosaurs. He's going to auction them off to the highest bidder. And Wu, the geneticist from the first movie, informs him that they need the raptor alive so that it can act as a mother to a new species that they're working on, the Indoraptor, a killing machine made from Indominus Rex DNA and of course Velociraptor. Lockwood's granddaughter, Macy, overhears all this and runs to tell her grandfather the truth. It's late in the night and he doesn't want to hear it. He probably should have listened to her because the next day Eli kills him. Meanwhile, the boat lands and all the dinosaurs are taken to the mansion. Owen and Claire are locked up for what they know, and the auction begins, with each dinosaur fetching a high price. Owen finds out that in the cell next to them is a Stygimoloch, which he gets to break through the brick wall and eventually out of the cell, where they see Macy. They earn her trust, and she sticks with them for the rest of the movie. Halfway through the auction, they give a little preview of the Indoraptor, and the crowd can't help themselves. Even though it's not for sale, they start bidding, and Eli figures, why not make an extra buck? Owen releases the Stygimoloch to the crowd, and it starts throwing people around left and right. Everyone runs, it's mass chaos for a while, and Wheatley decides now is the right time to ask about his bonus. He goes into the room and sees the Indoraptor just chilling in its cage. He shoots a couple tranquilizers into it and goes to get one of its teeth for a necklace he is making. A smart guy we're working with here. The raptor wakes up and kills him, and because he didn't lock the cage, it gets out and is now free to eat whoever it wants. In the basement, Owen, Claire, and Macy meet up with Eli, and after fighting a bit, he informs them that Hammond and Lockwood stopped working together when Lockwood lost his daughter in a car accident. He couldn't live with that, so he used Hammond's research to make him a new daughter, Macy. So she's a clone. She doesn't get much time to think about that, though, because the Indoraptor attacks, and everyone goes running. In the lab, they're cleaning up shop. Wu wants to get some of Blue's blood to make more raptors if needed. There's a fight, Wu gets knocked out, but the soldiers stop Zia and Franklin. That's okay. They have Blue on their side, who they let out, and she too is free to go on a killing spree. Some gas tanks explode, and she gets out just in time. But another tank of hydrogen cyanide is leaking, and there's no way to vent it outside. The next 15 minutes or so is a big fight between our heroes and the Indoraptor, with our friend Blue helping out here and there. It ends with the Indoraptor dying on a Triceratops fossil, and Blue walks away without a scratch. Back down to the lab, where we see all the dinosaurs dying from the gas. Claire opens their cells, but has second thoughts when it comes to opening the main gate. I mean, she just can't release all these creatures to the world. But Macy can. The gate opens and a stampede of dinosaurs head out into the wild. Eli's out there and he hides, but eventually the king of the dinosaurs eats him up. Blue and Owen have a moment where he says he'll take Blue to a safe place, but she's had enough of cages for now, so she runs off into the woods. It ends with Ian Malcolm saying, basically, how many times are we going to let this happen? Like it or not, we created this, and now we're going to have to live in a new era where man must coexist with dinosaurs. Whew. So, where are we at going into Jurassic World Dominion? Well, the last we saw Alan Grant was in Jurassic Park 3, and I'm guessing he's content on going back to studying fossils and never seeing a living dinosaur ever again. Ellie Sattler has a family now, and it seems like her adventuring days are behind her. Ian Malcolm is very much against what Hammond created, and he always was. Last we saw him was in the courtroom in Fallen Kingdom, but I would assume he's still with Sarah, and we know that he has at least one adult child, Kelly. Hammond, of course, has passed on, but his grandchildren, Lex and Tim, would be grown up by now, and I'm sure their time at the park has racked up quite the therapy bill. Wu, the genetic scientist, who was really at the forefront of all this, is presumed dead. I mean, he was passed out on the floor in Fallen Kingdom, and those tanks exploded, so I don't know. I'm guessing he's dead. I also don't think Vince Vaughn will be making an appearance as Nick Van Owen from Lost World, and the Kirbys from Jurassic Park 3 are probably still in jail. I assume Owen and Claire tried to work it out again after Fallen Kingdom, or maybe they just went their separate ways. I don't know. We'll find out. The brothers from Jurassic World, Gray and Zach, would be grown up by now, so they might show up again. And I'm sure they're not done with Macy yet either. Being that she just found out she's a clone, they'll try to use her DNA for something. Zia and Franklin survived Fallen Kingdom, and they were pretty useful, so they'll probably pop back up again. And then that just leaves us with the dinosaurs. Some survived the events of Fallen Kingdom, and are now out in the world. Blue did get a T-Rex blood transfusion, something I forgot to mention in Fallen Kingdom, but maybe that means she'll be able to breed with a T-Rex now. Stranger things have happened, and they have to find a way to carry on the raptor bloodline. I'd like for Dominion to open up with a suburban family just watching TV when they hear a disturbance outside, and the wife is just like, "Oh, honey, there's that darn Stiggy Moloch again getting into our trash cans." I don't know, we'll have to find out, but one thing's for sure. These movies reminded a generation that dinosaurs are cool, and now they're doing that again for a whole new generation. And there is nothing wrong with that. If you want a ranking for each movie, well, here it goes. Jurassic Park is perfect. The little bit of CGI was kinda wonky, but for the time, it was amazing. My first perfect score. 4 out of 4 shaving cream cans. Lost World Jurassic Park isn't bad, but not as good as the first. 2.5 innocent traffic lights out of 4. Jurassic Park 3 is the worst of the original trilogy, but still a fun time. 2 raptor voice boxes out of 4. Jurassic World reinvented the series without making it a full-on remake. It established this new world, and the movies continue to grow off those ideas. 3.5 hamster balls out of 4. Fallen Kingdom is kind of hit or miss. It's okay. I like how the dinosaurs are now out in the real world, and I'm excited to see where they go from here. 2.5 dinosaur tooth necklaces out of 4.